Women also demanded equality in both public and private life. Many middle-class white women believed their lives were constrained amid the prosperity of the post-World War II boom. In 1963, writer Betty Friedan gave voice to these concerns in her book, The Feminine Mystique. She identified the so-called problem that has no name and described how educated middle-class women felt, quote, isolated and useless in the comfortable concentration camp of the suburban house. She argued for meaningful work for educated women at equal pay with men. In 1966, Friedan helped found the National Organization for Women, which advocated an end to laws that discriminated against women, opportunity to work at any job, and equal pay for equal work. In 1967, women's activists began calling opposition to women's rights sexism, similar to racism, and described male chauvinism as a key element in blocking women's equality. They called for women's liberation, now advocated the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. First proposed in 1923, the ERA was a short declaration banning the denial or abridgment of rights on the basis of sex. Congress eventually adopted the ERA and sent it to the states for ratification. 35 states ratified the amendment, but it failed to achieve approval of the minimum of 38 state legislatures before a 1982 deadline. The new, or second-wave feminism, inspired a global movement for women's rights. Large marches and rallies for gender equality occurred in cities such as Tokyo, Toronto, London, Berlin, and Sydney. But feminism also encountered stiff opposition. Men who thought they might lose privileges, some middle-class housewives who worried that they would lose legal protections, and some traditional Christians who believed that the Bible sanctioned male leadership in the home resisted the new feminism. Conservative activist Phyllis Schlafly, one of Barry Goldwater's earliest supporters for the presidency, organized a grassroots movement opposed to ratification of the ERA. Many African-American women and Latinas considered the push for women's rights a white middle-class movement that did not understand the problems of domestic or farm workers raising children on their own. Despite derision and the failure to ratify the ERA, women advanced in education and the workplace. In the 1970s and 1980s, courts struck down numerous statutes and regulations that limited women's rights to property, employment, and reproductive choices. By 1990, women held about half the nation's jobs, and they had moved in large numbers into professions like law, medicine, dentistry, higher education, teaching, and accounting. Despite these significant gains, there were still inequities, for example, in the sciences. In most professions, the wage gap between men and women narrowed. In 1970, women earned 59 cents for every dollar earned by men. By 2000, it was 76 cents for every dollar. Even as some women with postgraduate degrees moved into highly paid occupations, however, the poverty rate for single mothers increased in the decades after the 1960s and remains a serious issue.